The coverage of the Russian-Ukraine war by the mainstream media I find pretty poor, though there are experts that are interesting. But the Iran war is a new low of ignorance, willful ignorance. I don't get the impression that anybody who's reporting on it reads or researches anything or thinks for themselves what's going on. So I sort of want to talk about things we can see about the war that I think are obvious to any of us and contradict what is being said. So, for example, they're saying that the mainstream media just really reports what the government of Israel and the US say, and they say, okay, we're getting all the launchers. Well, if you're getting all the missile launchers, why is Iran still hitting Israel and the Gulf Coast countries every day? Well, hitting Israel, for one, with these big, large missiles, these 10 every day and night. And then, of course, hitting rockets and drones into the Gulf Coast countries. Like, if they're hitting all these launchers, why is Iran still launching these missiles? And then the other thing that I find fascinating is that when you look at Iran's reporting about what's happening, most of it is about these commanders getting killed. So if you could, if you're in a battle, right? And I think this is common sense, right? If you're in a battle and you can either get let's just say that there's an artillery piece firing at you, right? Would you want to get the commander or do you want to get the artillery piece? Well, I think I'd rather get the artillery piece. The commander himself is not going to hurt me. The artillery piece is going to hurt me. So if you can hit the equipment, that's what you would hit. I think that's true for every military. And generally, militaries do not go after the officers of the other side. I mean, one, is sort of distasteful, but two, it doesn't really do anything because personally they can't do anything. They're not a weapon. And you see a lot of this where Israel and the U.S. are always focused on getting these people, these leaders, which tells me they can't get at the weapons. They're buried underground or whatever. They just can't get them. And there's almost no news. There's no proof whatsoever that they've destroyed any of these underground, tunnels. Like you don't see them drop a bomb on some mountain or something, and you see a secondary explosion because it hit the weapons below, right? I mean, normally you would see that. You can see that in some of the attacks in Russia and Ukraine over the past 4 years. When they hit something, they'll show it, the secondary explosions, and everybody will talk about it. But I haven't seen anything of that nature in the Iran war, which tells me it just hasn't happened. Because if it happened, they'd show it. And then they show hitting planes and trucks, but they look like they're abandoned, like they're just decoys or something. So it just doesn't add up. Again, they're going after people. They're wasting bombs on people, not on where the weapons are coming from. And then they give no proof that they're hitting the weapons. And then we can see from the amount they're hitting Israel that it's not making a difference really. And I don't see how Israel can do well if it's getting attacked by 10 missiles a day and night, let's say for the next year, right? I mean, that is a real economy suppressant. But the thing I want to talk about in this video is that the other thing is that the press always does is that, it shows these guys in these unflattering looks, It never shows any of these army or missile guys in like a high-tech setting. They're always dressed, in some rundown office, or they'll show terrorists on a camel, not a camel, but you know what I'm saying. They never look like they just look like they're just a bunch of yahoos, riding around with RPGs and AK-47s. But think about it. I mean, think about what has to be happening behind the scenes of Iran. So when they hit Tel Aviv, right, and they hit, like, say, the Microsoft plant, they're hitting a target from 1,000 miles away. Think of that, 1,000 miles away. That's like I'm here in Boston. That's like me going from here to like North Carolina or something. It's hitting a place that would take you 20 hours to drive to or a couple of hours in a jet. Think about it. They're hitting a place like within like 20-yard radius of accuracy, right? From a place that you'd have to fly 2.5 hours on a plane. Like you couldn't see it from here, you wouldn't hear it. Think about that precision. So who's building these rockets? These rockets are built by Iran. I mean, yes, they get Chinese parts and materials, but they're built in Iran. And they've been built that way for a long time because Iran, a long time ago, said we're not going to depend on anyone for our rockets. We're going to make them ourselves. And we're going to focus on something that we can be the best at. That's why they don't have any aircraft, because they're like, we're not going to really ever beat the U.S. and Israel in these technologies, F-35s, F-15s, whatever. So we're going to pick something that can defend us and that we can be the best at. And they are the best at. I mean, how many rockets do you see from Israel going to Iran at 1,000 miles and hitting with pinpoint accuracy, right? So these rockets, like many of them are liquid fueled, which means you have to be careful when you're filling them up, and then there's all kind of pressure gauges. I mean, you have to have serious engineering chops to both manufacture these rockets and then fill them up, prepare them, launch them. What direction they're going, how fast is the Earth spinning, what's the temperature in the air. There's so many factors that go into targeting and everything, right? I mean, you have electronics experts, right? Fuel experts. You have, the guy running the truck, the guy fixing the truck, communications. You have all this stuff. So, I mean, there are thousands of high-tech engineering type people working in Iran launching these rockets. And it's a bureaucracy. And the irony is that, yeah, I mean, if in a career, like networking is important. Like, if you want to, if you have a leader in the army, right, and they're colonel or whatever, general, then yeah, they know a lot of people personally. They know their strengths, their weaknesses. So yeah, they're setting the battle or whatever. It's important, probably. I mean, age is important, right, to have that experience and to be able to know, okay, yeah, this is a colonel. I want to work on this project, right, and this and that. Yeah, that's important. But you're talking about rockets. You're just talking about engineering talent. And engineering talent is just, in my opinion, just one of these things you're either born with or you're not born with. You either have the curiosity for it and you're into it or you're not. So it's the U.S. knocking out these administrators has nothing to do with the engineering capability of Iran to hit Israel or anywhere they want with these precise rockets. All they need are the engineers. And you can't get all these low-level engineers. You can't get these thousands and thousands of engineers that Iran has working on these weapons, building them, configuring them, shooting them, maintenance, all this stuff. And the other thing is that, in the Iranian economy, right, in a peacetime, you're not going to have many engineers working on rockets. They're going to be doing other things, startups or whatever. Startups are going to work for a telephone company or whatever, right? But, 8 months ago when you had a 12-day war, what you're having now is you're having tons of engineering talent in Iran saying, hey, I want to go work on this. No, I'm going to go work on the rockets, which is exactly what you have in Ukraine. So in Ukraine, all the engineering guys, they all funneled into that area, which is why Ukraine has such a strong drone system, because all the technical talent has now funneled into it. And that's what you have here in Iran. And again, how do I know this? I just know it's just human nature. It's just my experience working and whatever. All the engineering capable men and women in Iran are now all volunteering and going to work in this system. So Iran is not getting weaker with this long-range technology. They are getting stronger because now everybody is extremely motivated because they have a cousin or a nephew or a brother or a sister or a friend who's just like sleeping in their little apartment in Tehran, right? And then a missile strikes and kills them, right? You have all this death, all this like wanton random death in Iran, right? Going after these, these leaders that the U.S. and Israel somehow thinks like, oh, we take them out, because it's going to have the opposite effect. So the main thing I want to do this video is that these rockets are not trivial objects. They are not some RPG. They did not buy these rockets from the United States or France or everything. They built them themselves. Think about it. They built a rocket that they can fire, they can hide, bring it out, configure it, fire it, and hit a very specific building 1,000 miles away. And this isn't done by one guy, two guys, three guys. This is done by hundreds, right? Thousands of engineers working in all the components of this that understand everything. They understand the rocket engines, the aerodynamics, the electronic systems, right? The fueling systems, the fuel storage systems, really complicated stuff. So it's a complicated operation to do this. It isn't a few guys just sitting around with a gun. But if you look at the news, you do not get that idea at all. But if you think about it, you know that's who exists there. That's who's fighting the war. And taking out a few old guys that are just basically managers is not going to degrade their ability to wage this war for years. So where am I at? 11 minutes. Well, that's enough. I hope you found this interesting. Talk to you later.